Ma'am Gobodo, you've been welcomed, but please allow me to humbly welcome you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I want to start with where the book started. There's a quote that says, in every crisis, there is opportunity. And in 2020, the lockdown happened. You saw it as an opportunity to start the journey of writing this book. Can you take us through that process and what was the inspiration behind it?
Well, people had been asking me for a book. Where is the book, Ma'am Nonku? Where is the book? And you know, you're a chartered accountant. And we are thinking, write a book? Where do I start to write a book? I know numbers. You know, I thought that writing is a special skill that you need. But, you know, during that lockdown, I was just grappling with my life at that time. I was running a leadership consultancy, and I was not enjoying it, you know, and I thought this is an opportunity actually for me to just reflect. And out of that reflection, the book was born. I had the courage to write the book. You know, when people were just pressurizing me around the book, I thought, okay, I'll ask someone to write the book for me because I don't think I can write a book. But during that time, I realized that there's no one who can tell my story better than me. And it's amazing how we always start by doubting ourselves. Then you start to write the book. And of course, you just write the first 2 pages and you think, wow, I'm actually writing. And then you start writing the book, but you realize as you're going along, actually, that writing a book is a journey. You can't rush it. You write a chapter, and when you go back to that chapter, you're like, yo, what rubbish, and scratch the whole chapter and start from scratch. But the motivation really was to tell the story as it is, you know, all aspects of it, because we always think that people are motivated by our successes. So we want to tell only those beautiful sides, the success stories. But I wanted young people to know that life may be full of challenges, but you go through them. And you, from where you start to where you end a different person. You've grown, you've learned a lot of things. When you go to the next phase of your life, you are a more mature person, so that when they go through challenges, they know that this is not the end of their life. They can still come out of this challenge and do something else with their lives. It is important that people understand that life may be full of ups and downs, life may be difficult, but we need those challenges. Otherwise, how would we grow as human beings if you don't go through challenges?
There's a quote that you reminded me of that says, easy roads don't make good drivers. And you reading the book, I realize your road hasn't been easy. And I want you to take us back to when you were 17, because there was something monumental happened in your life which directed and shaped your life. So take us back to a 17-year-old
girl.
Nonkululeko. Where is she? What is she doing? What is she going through?
I grew up shy and quiet, and at some point, my mother was worried about me. You know, she was a strong woman, a matriarch. And she's looking at this child, yay, wena, lo mntana lo, into yakhe. Because I was different from my siblings who were, you know, outgoing and all of that. And then she started to verbalize these fears that I was not going to make it in life. And when you are a child, a 7-year-old, you just hearing these concerns, at some point you start to believe them, right? And you believe that, I'm not going to make it in life. And when I believed that, I became that pregnant at 17. And when I fell pregnant, my parents were like, that's it. You are not going to have an illegitimate child. You have to get married. So, I mean, when you're 17, you do whatever your parents tell you. Not that I had a choice in the matter. And then I was married. But I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, right? I had failed matric out of this thing of being a mother and married. I mean, there was just too much drama.
Yeah.
Raising a child and all of that. And my father said, okay, go and work at my panel beating shop. My father was a businessman. And that was the saving grace of my life. That's why I say falling pregnant at age 17 actually saved my life. You wouldn't think that a challenge like that would save your life, because when people fall pregnant at that age, it's the end of their lives in most cases. They don't continue with your education. Fortunately, I had parents who were very supportive of me at that time. So I go and work at this panel beating shop. And first day, it was run by two white gentlemen. The first day, I arrived there, and the manager asked, what is your name? And I say, Nonkululeko. That's too difficult. I'm just going to call you Mary. I'm like, what? What? You will do no such thing. You are going to call me by my name and write it down and practice it. I mean, you reflect later and you say, Nonkululeko unyabile. Where was that Nonkululeko? You know? Who was standing up to a white bully in apartheid South Africa, 19 years old. I was like, I'm not having it. And then I was taught bookkeeping, and I catch on to this bookkeeping thing quickly. And then I realized that I'm actually smart and strong, and I'm not this thing that I believed I was, right? All my life, that I believed I was going to be a failure. And then suddenly I had clarity about what I wanted to do. I was exposed to chartered accountancy because there were auditors who came to the business. And I went to my father and I said, who wanted me to be a doctor? Because in terms of books, I was smarter. Okay, I was not an A student, but
I was like.
But for my mom, that was not even important to her. She used to say, don't care about people who are clever in books but are not wise in the ways of the world. I mean, you're 11. You don't even understand what that means. So the fact that I was a bit smarter than my siblings never was a motivation for me, right? Because my mother always poured water over it. So it was the first time to discover who I am, then had clarity of what I wanted to do, going back to school now to complete matric, and then going to varsity. So you said, we should talk about this whole thing of these childhood wounds, and I'm sure we'll go there, because it is important to understand how deep they affect one.
Can we go there now, Mom? I think we're going to talk about your career, beautiful career. But while we're there, can you take us through the impact that it had on your self-esteem, on your self-confidence? Before we came into the center, we were talking to Gobodo runs Professional Moms. And you being such a strong matriarch, being somebody who is viewed by especially ladies as somebody who's a role model, can you talk to those women, those parents as well, about the scars and the wounds that they can possibly inflict without maybe not consciously on their kids? Can you talk about that?
Exactly. Because we didn't know anything about childhood trauma, right? I didn't know that experience had impacted me so much that those wounds were still very much alive in me and directing and impacting my life right through until I discovered that. So it is sad that we were raised by broken people. My father, for instance, lost his mother when he was very young. I think he was around 7 or so. And my mother was also raised by a very strong mother who was worried about the father was very soft, worried that the father was spoiling them too much, and was very tough, especially on my mom, who was the firstborn, who bore the brunt of that. So this cycle of brokenness being passed from generation to generation. So she was doing the same thing to us that her mother did to her, right? And so you just confused about, in spite of the successes. It was very confusing because when I was young, I was being criticized because I was young. When I was older, I was criticized because I was strong. I was like, yeah, you never win in life. And then out of this strength, and when you have a vision, you're just pushing for the vision and dragging everybody, thinking that, your way is the only way and all of that. Yeah. And had very difficult relationships in business because of that. And I share in the book how we fought with my first partner when I started practice. And then you reflect back on that, and you realize that, it was just personality clashes. There was no big deal. We destroyed the whole business. We had to start from scratch, both of us, because I didn't know that these wounds were contributing to these conflicts that I was having in relationships, in marriage, in business, and all of that. Until then, I started to say, I can't be complaining that people don't understand me when I don't understand myself. Let me start a journey of self-discovery. At that age, 19, I discovered the powerful Nonkululeko who became a businesswoman. Yeah. But there were aspects of myself, of my personality, of my emotional state, psychological state that I didn't understand. So I want to say today that I am so big on healing wounds, which is why I was so frank about it in my book. Yeah. Because as a nation, we are never going to rebuild our nation if we are raising broken children. Parents passing on brokenness to their children. And then we have a broken nation, always building and destroying, because I was saying, how can I be two people, smart and building, and then the same person destroy? Because what I didn't understand was that wounded inner child, what actually happens to that child is that she's always there, right? And because she didn't feel safe when she was young, she was told that you're going to be nothing and all of that. And believing that, at the deep psychological aspects of yourself, you have this old thing of, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of success. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of wealth. Which is, that child is the one who, when you are coming up and succeeding, comes with that thing of fear of success and sabotages everything you do. Sabotages everything that you do, which is why I was building and then destroying, and then building again and then destroying. So we have to deal with this brokenness. And, young people who read my book are saying, I wish I could have these conversations with my parents. Whether it was a mother who wounded you, we talk about mother wounds or father wounds, or a father who was absent, right? And now it's difficult as this generation to talk to the older generation because, you can't question a parent, right? Because even those who try to bring out these things, the conversation never goes far because, again, you are just shut down. And let's also understand that our parents tried their best, right, from where they were. Yeah. And you are an adult now, and you have to take it upon yourself to find healing for yourself. Yeah. I tell these young people that, but Mama, I went home, and I sat my father and my mother down talking about how I was hurt by the things that used to happen in my childhood. And they didn't even know how to deal with that. So what else can I do? I say, first of all, they can't even explain themselves what happened. Even if I would sit my mother down, she wouldn't be able to explain, right? And you also don't understand that you benefited from that. Because my mother was hard on me, because she was worried about me, I became this strong, powerful businesswoman because of the same thing. So see the benefits out of the wounding itself and start the journey of healing yourself because you're an adult now, right? And you can, you know, I say because my children didn't grow up with their father as well, and it really hurt, especially my youngest son. And I said to him, your father is now asking for forgiveness, right? You're still wanting some answers from him. He doesn't have those answers. You have to just go through your own healing journey, which he eventually understood, that he must just go to therapy for his own journey.
Yeah. Let's dwell there a little bit, because you talk about intergenerational passing on of wounds. With the wounds that you inherited from your mother, can you tell us about your relationship with your kids? Because in the book, your healing almost, when I read it, I felt like your healing started when the conversations with your children also started. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, there was a time when my children then started to share these wounds. But like these parents I'm talking about, I used to shut them down. I remember my son, around 20, saying, remember, Mama, when you used to leave us with Grandma, you missed all my important milestones. I don't even think you were at my graduation for preschool. I'm like, you're 20, why are we talking about preschool? So I would just shut him down. I was a single mother. I couldn't attend every rugby match, you know, and every this and that and that. But at some point, because now I was also going through my own journey, I realized that these kids are hurt. Because I was 34 when I divorced with 3 children. And the father was not involved in raising them. So I was building a career and I was raising these children. And because I was raised by a mother who was also a professional, who was a nurse, who made the choice of pursuing her profession, it was easy for me to make those choices as well, that I'm not going to sacrifice for my children, you know. I have my own dreams as well. And so you were this absent mother. You can imagine when you are building this big business and you are living, trying to open an office in Johannesburg. You are always in Johannesburg, leaving the kids with my mom. That whole year I was planning this business. That's when he was saying, you remember when you used to leave us with Mama? And you didn't realize that they were wounded by these things because you thought, you know, we all have to survive here, you know. I have to take care of you. I have this responsibility. I also have my own dreams. Because I'm a professional mom, you can go to these best schools and so on, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of the situation is that they were broken. I mean, my daughter, remember, I got married at age 17.
Yeah.
So when I was writing the board exam, my daughter was 2 years. And I used to be a lecturer, as it was read here. So I was there for her, you know, available because I was lecturing. Then I started my articles and decided to pursue my studies because I was now like this baby thing. I need to focus on my dream of becoming a chartered accountant. So you can imagine a 2-year-old. Suddenly, mom has literally disappeared. You hardly see her. She's gone while you are sleeping. She comes back, you are asleep. She's never there because after work, we're studying at the offices. By the time I come home, she's sleeping. So she sees me here and there, weekends, even weekends, I'm grabbing my bag and going to the office to study. So she felt so abandoned. And all along, as she was growing up, she used to say, "You don't love me." And I could never understand this thing of, where is this thing coming from? Until I decided, no, let's go deep, because she felt I had rejected her. And then I'm trying to trace, where is this rejection coming from? And then as we were talking one day, because she was saying, "You probably never even wanted me." And fortunately, she was planned, She was one of those, when I took this gap year actually to lecture so that I could have another child. So fortunately, I was like, "No, you were planned, definitely, you were planned." And then I realized, it's that 2-year-old I left.
Yeah.
So as much as I was that 7-year-old wounded, she was that 2-year-old who was wounded by a mother who abandoned her. Yeah. And then you became busy, remember?
Yeah.
Then even as she was growing up, I was always this mother who was busy. I was actually confused because she had mother wounds but didn't have father wounds, although the father disappeared from her life when she was 9. Then I would hear her telling stories. I remember we were having lunch when my son was going to Harvard, and we were having lunch, as she was celebrating just before he leaves. And she was telling this story about, my dad used to, every Friday, take us to the video shop, and I would hire this Tom and Jerry video, and we'd go home and would watch this video, and my dad would watch it as if we didn't see it last week. She remembered those moments with the father, but where was the mother? In a meeting in Johannesburg. The mother was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So these wounds, we don't understand how deep they are.
Just on that, back to professional moms, one of the topics that was handled in one of the sessions was the balancing act. That was the theme of, I think, one of the conferences. Do you think it's possible in this day and age? And I know that the culture is also especially harder on women more than men. Do you think that balancing act is possible?
No, there's no balancing act. And I don't want to spoil your interview because I want us to focus on the questions that you want to ask. But this whole issue of balance as a society, we need to look into it. That's why I've started this podcast where I go deep into these gender issues. Because you cannot, Prof, have a society that is structured around women providing unpaid caregiving and domestic work. The whole structure of our society is based on that. Now we're saying, even if you're working as a society, we still expect you to continue providing us as a society with unpaid caregiving and domestic work. Wherever this thing started, right? Right now, we're not living in that world, right? Women have their own ambitions, their own careers. Women are stretched because I remember with myself, I was a CFO of a big corporation, but I was expected to be a traditional wife who still had to fulfill this unpaid, caregiving and so on work. At some point, I remember I was exhausted. And when you think about it, actually, it was not just mental exhaustion, it was psychological exhaustion. Because over holidays, I remember that, we didn't go on holiday as much as you guys do today. So at some holidays, we wouldn't go on holiday. And we'd be at home. I also need a rest. and the helper is gone home also. So I have to wake up and start from, taking care of the kids, cooking for the kids, cleaning the house, doing washing. My ex-husband is lying on the couch or going out with friends. I mean, how fair is that?
Yeah.
How fair is that?
None.
That domestic responsibilities are just skills that anybody can learn.
Yeah.
But we've all been, I thought it was my duty. We've all been socialized in this. So I just want to say that I don't want to go deep in this topic. Listen to my podcast. But I want to say that we have to look at the structure. Because women, it's not fair that women sometimes, they don't take up promotions because of this guilt. I am going to be seen to be a good mother, a bad mother or a bad wife, so I'd rather not take this responsibility. How fair is that? That the man can dream and achieve as far as he wants, but the woman must diminish her own goals and ambitions because of this responsibility that society has put on her.
Wow.
Yeah, we have to look at this thing. Otherwise, there's no balance. The only way you're going to find balance is to find equity and balance in this sharing of these responsibilities.
Amen. Can you give that a round of applause? In reading the book, I saw a lot of commonalities and a lot of repetition, especially around the theme of first. I think even when Prof was reading your bio, there's a lot of first there. And one of the first that you encountered was the first female black chartered accountant. Tell us about that experience and how it changed your life.
Yes, you just had this dream of becoming a chartered accountant. And when you are starting to be a CA, you have no life. Those 7 years, you just dedicate to this achievement. You sacrifice everything. While young people are having fun, you are not having fun. So you are just so focused on achieving this, and you are told that black people don't pass this thing. you know? And because of my responsibilities, I was just so determined to pass first time. I was like, my children have suffered enough. I have to pass this thing the first time. So that was my driving force, I didn't think I would be first or anything like that because there were women who had written the board exam before me. So it was not even in my mind, actually. I mean, you learned later how people, they desired to be the first, because I suppose we had Professor Nkutlu, who was the first black person to qualify. So I didn't even realize the day the exams, the results came out. I remember that day clearly. I mean, you talk to any chartered accountant of any age. I used to laugh when older CAs would be telling their stories of that day the results came out. I would be like, you're 60-something, you're still telling us about that day.
Yeah.
Here am I still telling you about that day. Because it's just so traumatic to study for this thing. So they punish you. They come out at 4. And the whole day, I can't even concentrate. I'm looking at the clock. 4 o'clock comes and I'm called by the partner. I'm doing articles at the time. And the partner, the results actually went to our West London office. I was in Amtata. So Doug Southgate hands me the phone. I'm trying to read his expression, but I can't read the expression. So I'm like, I have to wait to hear my fate. So the guy on the other side says, congratulations. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I've passed. You remember, you're told all the time, black people don't pass this thing.
Yeah.
Black people don't pass this thing. And I was just so excited, so overwhelmed, so relieved that I don't have to do this thing again.
Yeah.
It turned out the following day that I was the first.
Wow.
And even then, when I was the first, remember, I never had a goal. I suppose someone who had a goal would have been so excited. I was like, I was first, whatever. And then until the media descended onto my small town of Amtata, I was now a celebrity. I was like, oh, so overwhelmed. No, I'm a shy girl from the Eastern Cape, please. I did this for me. I don't need all this,
Unfair.
attention. Until, this reporter from the SABC sobered me up and said, this is not about you. You are now a role model for others. A role model for young women, a role model for young children who can now look up to you. And I heard him and I realized he's right. And what does that mean? It means then I must now succeed, not just for myself, but for others as well, which is why I then really focused on my career. Because I now had this responsibility. If I'm a failure, then it means my mother used to say to my older sister, you are the firstborn, you are the first carriage of the train. If you fail, you can imagine the whole train is going to fall. Hey. So I was like, I can't allow the whole train to fall. It came with a huge responsibility, but a lot of benefits as well. Because when you are the first, then you are famous, and opportunities open for you, and they are still opening for me today because of that. So it became just such a blessing. But I'm also so humbled that even today, 36 years later, it's still such an inspiration to everybody, to young people. I'll be getting into a lift, and a young person, a student, would scream, yo, man, you're such an inspiration. I'm like, 36 years later, I'm still an inspiration. So, Prof, we never stop being an inspiration.
You talk about the doors that that achievement opened for you. And I think the glass ceilings were also shattered because the sky was now the limit. Can you tell us about some of those opportunities that were opened because of this achievement?
I mean, the nice thing about the profession is that it really, of our profession, the accountancy profession, is that it gives you so many choices of what you can do with your qualification. So after articles, for instance, I was the head of internal audit. I didn't enjoy that. I was the CFO, and then I decided after that, I had been a lecturer. Okay, I was not a CA when I was a lecturer, but you can be a lecturer. And then I decided I wanted to open my own practice. I just want to talk about the importance of dreams and vision. When I was doing articles, I had this vision of having my own practice. I suppose because I grew up in Amtata, Professor Wiseman Kuhlu was the one who opened the first African firm of chartered accountants in my hometown. So it was easy to be inspired by people like that. So I had this dream of having my own practice. And I remember I used to have a picture of my offices, and it would be this 2-story house, at the house, at the gate, written Gobodo house, just like we have ULP house at the gate. And this vision, this dream, that's why at some point it calls you. It calls you. I had this beautiful career as a CFO, but the time came for that vision to call me. Yeah. And I remember how everybody was scared. My parents were in business, were scared. How are you going to compete with these big international firms? And I remember thinking, no, but this is my dream. I can't not pursue it. And people would beg me to at least continue lecturing part-time. I would be like, no, I want to succeed in this thing. I noticed that those who had small practices and were teaching, their practices never grew. So I was like, no, I want to succeed in this. And you start your own practice. I mean, I remember the day when I opened the doors to my practice. I had my own business, and you sober up very quickly. Because you now realize that, cash flow. How am I going to pay my staff at the end of the month and still feed my family? It's a huge responsibility, and you realize that, the Nonkululeko has to go now. Yeah. Because I have to market this business if I'm going to make it. And you watch it grow, you start to attract clients. And then you are not satisfied. Okay, I've done this small business thing, but my dream is a bigger business. How do I get there? You again have to, dream bigger and start knocking on bigger doors. They are shut, get those doors slammed, shut in your face. But you have to bang on them until they're open, And then I remember when we got our first big break, when the Auditor General in Amtata gave us a big job. When I opened the letter, I went to my partner and I said, to do this job. I mean, there were about 2 staff in the office. To do this job, we'll need at least 30 staff members. I mean, our practice just grew from 2 to 30 overnight, Wow. The power of this dreaming again and not being satisfied with where you are. You have to dream again. And that's what I always did. When I settled in a space, I would say, no, it's 1994, it's a free South Africa. We need a medium-sized black accounting firm so that we can start to do bigger projects. Let's come together as black accountants to establish this. And of course, it comes with its own challenges, right? As you grow, challenges are bigger.
Yep.
But you can't give up because of challenges. You have to face the challenges and overcome them. And the biggest challenge was this thing of not being trusted, that as black accounting firms, we can do the job. And we had to face up to that challenge and say, how do we equip ourselves? Because if we don't do a good job, we're going to lose these jobs. And empowering our staff, equipping our staff, training our staff, so that we can compete with the big accounting firms, and so on. And it went on like that until with the biggest dream then of Gobodo. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about that some more.
Let's touch on that because, let's give that a round of applause. When Prof was reading the profile, from the outside, it looks very glamorous. SNG, biggest black firm in South Africa, challenging the top 4, getting really big jobs. But internally, there was a lot going on. And I like the way you talk about it in the book. Can you tell us what was going on inside?
So we had come to a stage where, I think we're settled as medium-sized black accounting firms, and they were starting to be emerging new challenges where the international firms were now BE compliant and were losing opportunities because they could get jobs without us, whereas before they had to partner with us. So it was either we go extinct or we do something. And that's when I approached my colleagues and I said, hey, let's do something, Let's come together and build a bigger black firm so that we can answer this question of we don't have capacity to do bigger jobs. It was a challenge for them to come out of their comfort zone. They were already established. It would be a risk for them. When you put together something, you can't unscramble that egg. So what if it fails? What if we lose everything we've worked for so long? And as black people, we also like this, I want my small anyana thing, it's mine, I can control it. The one thing I love about black accountants, we're always prepared to leave that comfort zone and sacrifice. Because putting together two big firms, there's the first challenge of who's going to be CEO. I used to be CEO. And so on. But eventually, people realized that we had to move forward, and we came together. We hear that mergers fail. Prof benza loo nto phaa a business school. And you start from that point that only about 20% of measures make it. So are we going to end up being a statistic or what? And I was really determined that we're not going to fail. There's a whole country that was looking up to us. We became such an inspiration to so many people. But the reality of the situation is that putting together those two big firms was a huge challenge with many moving parts. And besides the challenge of integrating the firms themselves, first of all, there's fear around, are we going to make it? What if the market is not ready for this big black accounting firm? So we are dealing with all of these emotions, even internally. And when opportunities came for, tenders for auditing services, I remember we had these arguments. What should we do now? Should we tender on our own or still continue partnering? And we were debating this, and there was this fear. And I remember thinking, no, man. We said we wanted to do big things. Yep. We have to take the bold step. I had to face my own fear because I also was like, the lives of people, the destinies of people, you carry that responsibility as a leader. And I had to face this fear and say, no, we said we wanted to do big things. If we don't take this bold step, we'll always be small. And, you don't even understand how deeply this thing of partnering was having on us until we had our own big firm. Because, when we are partnering, you are this small boy. You go to these big offices, even when we are working on these tenders, you are just nothing here. And when we were doing these tenders, after we agreed now that we're going to do this on our own, we were doing the proposal at our own offices. When going to the presentation, we were getting into our own cars. I used to say, Prof, when they say, no, let's use one car to go to the presentation, I would say, no, I'll use my own car. At least, can I just use my own car? It was such a restoration of my own dignity as a black person. That I didn't understand how it was so traumatic to be a small somebody to someone else, But then, hey, okay, you've submitted. Are we going to make it? I'll never forget when that phone call came. The chair of the audit committee of Transnet phoning me. When I saw the numbers, like, I was in a meeting at the boardroom. I was like, this is an important call. And then he says, Nonkululeko, the board of Transnet has decided to appoint Sizwe and Gobodo as the sole auditors of Transnet. Courage will always be rewarded.
Amen.
Can you imagine if we were just listening to the fear and went with the fear? We would have missed that opportunity. Yeah. So now we were appointed sole auditors, and then a new fear started. Because the white firms are saying, Mas, we are going to fail. You know that you'll never make it. I was like, okay, they never said it to me. They said it to my other partners. I was like, no, we're not going to. They said we're going to go begging for help. And I was like, no, we will not go begging for help. We're going to sleep at Transnet. We're going to succeed in this. Never forget the day that Transnet was to announce the result. Everybody was there. to watch this spectacle of this failure of a CFO who says, hey, I'm sorry, we don't have the results. And the CFO stood up, shared the results. Afterwards, the expression in their faces, they could not believe it. That we had actually done this and we didn't go to them for help. So we want to say, as Black people, we've got to believe in ourselves. This thing of beliefs that I'm talking about, limiting beliefs, believing what is being said about us, just like that little girl who believed what was said about her until she found herself. So when they were repeating this thing to us over and over, they sure believed that we wouldn't make it. But if we had listened to it and internalized it, Nati would have believed that we wouldn't make it, right? But we refused to accept those beliefs for ourselves. We wanted to believe that Victor and myself, we had this responsibility to motivate everyone to believe that we're going to do this, we're going to make it. So we have to deal with these limiting beliefs as Black people, because they're not true. They've been proven not to be true. We grew up in a society that said we're inferior and others are superior to us. And at some level, we believe this, right? And it was my determination to prove to myself and others that I can achieve anything as a Black woman. And so we had to motivate our people to believe that we could make this. And we built this largest Black accounting firm that became the 5th largest in South Africa. They never used to talk about the big 5 until we made it. When we realized that we had actually overtaken Grant Thornton, who were the 5th, they never claimed that 5th spot. Yeah. Hey, we went out and claimed number 5 for number 5 for number 5. We had overtaken Grant Thornton as the 5th largest accounting firm. Awesome. That thing was, when you have a dream and you fulfill it beyond anything you can imagine. Yeah, beautiful. That was what that thing did for me.
That deserves another round of applause. Now, another trait of yours that I picked up in the book is that you are a pioneer and a leader, less than a manager and a maintainer. Can you tell us about the difference between those two? Essentially, leadership versus management, and what inspires you to go and start something new when you've conquered one mountain?
I suppose, leaders are the ones who have to provide the vision, the direction of where the organization is going. And managers are those who then come in to support that vision and that direction. And it is very important that this leader must have clarity of this direction. I always say that if your own people don't even know what is important to you as a leader, how can they follow you, right? Yeah. So you've got to have clarity of vision yourself so that people around you, they are very clear about where we are going as an organization. And leaders are responsible for the success or failure of the organization. And I always say that great leaders don't make excuses, right? They get on with the job of whatever is needed at that time. Yeah. Because as a leader, when you are faced with challenges, you've got to find a way of overcoming those challenges so that you achieve. When you look at the state of our country today, we have got to put the blame squarely at the door of leadership. We can't be making excuses. I used to say, this previous CEO of ESCOM, each time he would appear on TV or whatever, he would have a string of excuses. I would say, can you just tell us one thing that you've achieved? Just one. Just one that you've bedded down. Right?
Yeah.
Leaders don't come with excuses.
Yeah.
So the cost of poor leadership, Prof, is very high. We should not tolerate poor leadership. So in my businesses, I remember when I went back to the profession and I found this problem of we're losing ground as black firms because I'd left the profession in these ups and downs. I didn't just fold my arms and say, we're losing ground. I was the leader at that time who had to come up with solutions to solve the problem. And that's exactly what I did. Black firms exist today because I stood up and provided leadership. And said, we're not going to succumb to this failure of, well, now we used to do 50-50, now we're doing 20%, or we get no opportunity. Leaders don't make excuses. Yeah. They find solutions, and I found it.
100%.
And saved black firms. They're still around today.
Amen. To our online audience, please pose your questions on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and then we're going to feed them to Mam Gobodo, and then we're also going to give the in-house audience an opportunity to pose your questions, so get those ready. You talk about returning to the profession, and I was reading the book. You talk about your 12 years in the wilderness. Reminded me of the children of Israel who spent 40 years in the wilderness. And I said, at least yours was 12, not 40. But can you tell us about your 12 years in the wilderness?
Yeah. This thing of not understanding yourself and then not understanding those wounds and the impact that they do to you. So because I'm a pioneer, once the thing is established, I just get so bored. I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself now. And I dream again. And of course, people are not ready for the next dream, right? They're still grappling with this place where we've arrived. And that's when I left the profession. I was like, black people will never develop. Let me go and do other things. Biggest mistake of my life. And but, the wilderness is a place we need, because that's where you face your challenges, you deal with your shortcomings, and you find a new self who is ready to do bigger things, actually. Yeah. But we always look at the pain of the wilderness, and you only realize the benefits afterwards. So I'm very grateful for those years, because that's why I found a new self. That's why I can write a book now about awakened to my true self, and still able to go on at my age, dreaming new dreams as I've started Awakened, to wake up black people and women to their true selves so that we can start rebuilding this continent. So I want to say, you must not never die in the wilderness, because that's not its purpose. Yeah. The purpose is not that you die in the wilderness. The purpose is for you to awaken. Yeah. And once you realize what led you there, come out and go and do something bigger. Yeah. Which is what I did.
100%. I don't know if we've got our roving mic in the house. So if you've got a burning question you want answered, please raise your hand. We'll give you an opportunity. Let's start with the young man in orange here at the front.
Greetings to the house at large. My name is Tabi Somofukeng from Boksburg, Women Park. I was doing a research before coming here about our mother here. I have a question. I have two questions. I was reading an article about you talking about your 17-year pregnancy, and then there is a quote that you quoted, or let me not say quote, but words that you uttered there in that article. You said sometimes the solution of your problem lies in your problem. So basically, I'm asking this question because I'm a managing director, I have an NPO dealing with children, and then I'm dealing with youth. They also have problems. And then you said sometimes the solution of your problem lies in your problem. So I want me, when I go back, so that whenever I will motivate them with this code, then I have a clarity with the code, then it has a team. That's my first question. And the second question, I've noticed that you are concerned about the life of a black person in South Africa. And you have come and realized that even though we claim to say we have freedom, but still we don't have that freedom that we want as a black person. We still discriminate each other. There's still we having racism because of the color of our skin. So my question, my question says, what does freedom mean to you? Thank you.
I think we'll tackle each question.
Each question,
yeah.
okay. Why I say that is because sometimes we just focus on the problem, right? And the challenge that we're facing at the time, not realizing that, the Bible says everything is always working out for our own good, right?
Yep.
That if you're not looking for that good in the challenge, you will never see it.
Yeah.
My falling pregnant at age 17 solved a big problem of my life, where I thought I was a failure and all of that. And out of that challenge, I found myself, and I was able to continue with my life. So let's stop focusing on the problem, because when we focus on the problem, it just expands and keeps growing and growing and growing. Whereas on the other side of the problem that you're not looking at is the solution to the problem anyway, that will take you to the next level of your life. I'm really passionate about this whole issue of let's take responsibility for our own transformation. Because when you complain about the slow pace of transformation, who are we complaining to? Who can champion our transformation better than ourselves? This whole notion of waiting for other people to change so that our situation may be right. Kuzolunga. If white people would change, kuzolunga for black people. So I'm saying, when you are in a privileged situation, I mean, of course, you'll want to protect your privileged situation, right? And I've been doing a lot of research on this subject. And I'm just thinking that you can't just protest and think you'll solve the problem. And I'm not looking down upon what protests have achieved for us, right? They've, brought about this freedom that we enjoy. But are we free? No, we're still not free, right? We're still not economically free. And so, remember, this whole foundation of apartheid and racism and all of that was around, creating social inequality so that there must be others who are at the bottom so that others may climb up. I mean, that was the whole strategy of apartheid, right? Mm-hmm. So if there was a whole strategy of this thing, do you think just protesting we're going to find a new life as black people? No. We need to go back to the drawing board now and try to undo this whole thing that was done. And no one is going to do that for us, except us. That's why Prof have started this organization.
Yep.
To try and undo all of that work. Because unless we undo, we'll always be in this subordinate position, always the one who has to serve instead of building businesses and starting organizations to, like you've done, to solve our own problems, right? So I'm just saying it's a journey. Freedom was just the first phase.
Yeah.
And we thought freedom was just automatically going to come with all of these solutions, which it didn't. Now we realize 30 years later that we're still facing the same problems. So now we've got to go back to the drawing board and say we're going to take responsibility for our own transformation. The same Afrikaner, we forget this history, that they were once poor, living in slums, considered inferior by the English. But they didn't complain, right? They started to champion their own transformation, economic and political and social. So no one is going to do this for us. We have to come together and start to tackle these problems.
There was another hand behind the young man there. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, no. You can go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Dibulisa, ma'am.
Yeah, hello.
My name is Bonga Mahlati. I'm from Pretoria. I have two questions. The first question is, in your book, you speak a lot and you try and you speak a lot about your father and some of the mistakes that your father did and the businesses he started and those that failed. I'm interested to find out, perhaps do you consider your father as your role model? Or did you even model your life around some of his traits and how he would speak for himself with lawyers and all those things? Then the second question is, what's your view of the profession currently? In light, of course, with the KPMG scandals and Steinhoff falling apart and all that, and having the glorious profession, of course, now it has reclaimed its position back again. But what's your view and how do you feel about it and the direction that it's taking and the quality and that it produces now? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My father was a big role model for me. And because he was just such a courageous, fearless man who went where eagles dare, I suppose we can say. So, I mean, I used to watch him fight these battles and win them. And whenever they were fighting me in business, Prof, I would say, yo, they don't even know me. I was trained by the best. Fearless.
Yeah.
But even the fact that he would, make a mistake, fail, and rise again. So when I was going through my own challenges like that, I never used to give up on myself because I watched him rise and rebuild again. So I always had this belief that I'm going to overcome this and I'm going to rebuild again. Very big role model in my life. Both of them, my parents actually. In different ways. They influenced me in different ways. We're number one now, we're number one. I mean, they have my picture there as well in this claiming of number one, quoting me. I'm like, hey, when you lose number one, don't put my picture there. Again, for me, when we fell into this, I never thought we'd sink this low. But I never gave up on us. And I said, when you face a challenge, again, you have to learn from the challenge and overcome and come out better, right? And I mean, we're number one, but we can't even sleep. We can't even, sometimes when you achieve something, you sort of relax a little bit. We can't even relax. We now have to keep this spot of number one. There's still a lot of work to be done in the profession. So we still have to restore faith, in the profession. And just being number one is not going to automatically restore that faith. So I would really encourage all of us as chartered accountants to keep going.
Yeah. Just piggybacking off that, there's a question from Nokubonga Hadebe. And the question says, if she was to be an entry-level CA today, given how the world, economy, and mental health are going, what or how would she position herself?
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one. I know, young people, they're looking at the world and they're really worried about the future. The world is changing all around. And I would say, each generation has its own purpose, right? As those pioneering chartered accountants, we had our own purpose and we achieved it, right? We opened the way for others to follow. So this new generation, must find their own purpose. And instead of looking at the challenges and problems like we did, there were huge challenges during our time. But in spite of those challenges, we still continued to dream our own dreams and pursue those dreams. I remember when we started APF, it was called the Abasa Practitioners Forum, because there were many of us now. And we came together to strategize around, okay, we started these small practices. How do we come together so that we can, together open doors for ourselves? Because, knocking as one person is not going to change that. That is when we knocked doors at the Department of Public Enterprises, and Stella Stau then opened that door of Transnet for us at that time. So this generation, mental challenges and all the pressures of today, you have to fulfill your own purpose of how do we then overcome these mental challenges. And they're real, they're really real. Yeah. And how do we build a new society? Instead of focusing on the problems, see where the opportunities are. Because if we didn't look at finding the opportunities, we wouldn't have found them. We looked for them and we found them. Yeah. So we shouldn't fear the future because of the challenges. Yeah.
Evening, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Nolo. I have two questions also as well. I wanted to ask, do you feel with the accomplishments and the success that you have right now, were they for the better in taking into account the sacrifices and maybe the traumas that maybe you had passed also to your kids as well, and especially towards your daughter who you felt, she felt a certain way with certain things? Do you feel that maybe having her seen you succeed in such a way maybe have been for a better, in a way that she can see that she can also probably also accomplish such things? Because my mother did it. Maybe some sacrifices had come, but I don't know maybe how she might feel also, but I was wondering how you feel. The second question is, you said you did your own introspection in the long run in your own mental health. So I wanted to ask, how did you go about it? Did you go to therapy? How did you deal with it? And how can somebody else who probably cannot afford to do therapy and stuff, how could they probably do their own introspection and actually deal with their own mental issues and mental traumas that we have gone through ourselves? Thank you.
No, reflecting back, because I've always, wondered and asked myself this question, when I saw the impact, should I have slowed down? Would the market have waited for me if I had slowed down? I don't think so. I don't think the market would have waited for me. So I then said, in spite of the impact, I don't have regrets, because the same children had a role model of a successful mother. And now today, they are successful in business. They are able to dream the kind of dreams that they are dreaming, because they had me as a role model. The same daughter who runs her own production company focusing on diversity and inclusion. She's a filmmaker. She would be shooting somewhere, and she's married. Hey, Mama, can I leave Umali with you these few days? I'm like, oh, oh, now you can leave, Mali. Because now she understands, you know. But we still need to deal with the wounds, you know, and not just shut our kids down. I never went to therapy myself, right? Because I just had, I suppose because I'm a Christian, I believe that God would help me through the journey, and He really did. The Holy Spirit is the best therapist. But I'm not discouraging people from going to therapy. Please, I mean, if you can afford therapy, please, you know, seek help and all of that. But there's no therapist who's going to heal you. You still have to walk your own journey of healing yourself, right? They can support you through the journey. And maybe it took me longer because I did it myself. I don't see those who are going to therapy taking any less time anyway, either. But the thing is, it needs courage, right? Because remember, we cover those wounds and we don't want to open them. So to open those wounds, circumstances have to force you. So the wilderness really forced me to open those wounds. And you have got to start asking questions. When you notice your own behaviors, for instance, why am I behaving like this? Because we like denial. We start by denying first that there's anything wrong. And as you ask those questions, you have to face the truth that there's something wrong. And that's when you start the journey of healing and get the courage as you succeed, you know. When you remove one layer and you see the positive impact it does have in your life, you are encouraged to go and dig the second one and the third one and so on.
Awesome, awesome. I've got a question from Octavia Ephraim. How would you encourage someone over 50 considering to start the journey of becoming a CA and opening their own practice?
It's never too late. I watched my father, who was, you know, very smart, and his father, who was an Anglican priest, was sending him to Forte, and he was like, no, I'm not going there, and took a bus to Cape Town to look for work. And it was the regret of his life, which is why he was encouraging us to start further. Then at 60, he fulfilled that dream.
Oh.
Studied religious studies with Eunice. I can't remember exactly. I think I have it in my book. And I just watched him, you know. He would be visiting home. I was older then, visiting home, and he would be closing his studies because he has an assignment or whatever. I was like, "Hey, Tata, are you really seriously doing this?" And he finished and became a minister in the Anglican Church as well. So it's never too late to pursue
Never too late.
dreams.
I love that. All right, we're about to wrap up. I think we'll take one or two more questions in-house.
Good evening. Ikamala Munkozvumile from Winnell Park, Boksburg. Mama, what would you say to a young black woman who is crippled by fear? Fear from her upbringing, as you said, wounds from her childhood, things that were said, and also from trying and failing. So now it seems like everything that was said to her in her childhood is actually her reality.
This whole thing of beliefs, it's just so important.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, beliefs create our reality, right? Whatever you believe about yourself becomes true. Not that a belief, remember, is just a belief, is something you believe. and you can change the belief. What we don't understand is that because the belief is creating this reality and is proving to be true, as we are saying, and so we are just going through this cycle until you wake up one day, which is why I'm talking about waking people up. You know, until you wake up one day and realize that this thing is not true. You know, I can create a new reality for myself. So I would say that you must never allow fear to define who you are, because fear cannot define who you are. You are more than that. You are a soul. You know, you have the Spirit of God within you, and you can overcome anything in life. And we have role models so that we can also believe in our own selves, all right? But sometimes we look at people and look at what they have achieved and think that they are special, which is why people love my book, because they can read there about my own failures and realize that, oh, she's just human, like me. So I don't have to allow my own failures to define me or my own fears to define me. So fear is there to be overcome.
Yep.
Challenges are there to be overcome. So I would encourage you to start asking those. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than asking the right questions. Start asking the right questions. It's amazing how the Holy Spirit will open things to you that you didn't even realize or see for yourself, and find the answers that you're looking for.
Amen. I think we're gonna wrap up. Yes, I was gonna suggest it needs to be a lady. So thank you. You're prophetic.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Alexandria, although I feel like going for my second name right now, Nonkululeko. From Mumo Park. So I have two, maybe three questions. So the first one is, how do you put a 17 or 16-year-old girl to that mentality of you are as special as the next person? You are as special as Michelle Obama. You are as, as powerful as anybody else, or any power woman. Because right now, there are trends that are going for AMA 2K, and you listen to these kids speak, and there's literally nothing that comes out of their mouth other than, grooves or whatever. And how do you prepare or put such girls on that mentality of dream, have a vision, have passion, have something? Number two, how do you bridge the gap between those young girls and women who are maybe at 40 and going 45 and say, oh, I just found a dream at 45, but I don't think I can do it anymore. So how do you bridge between that gap so that they have access to each other, and the old will teach the young how to dream, and the young will teach the old how to dream? And the third one is, as a young mother myself, how do you not try to look selfish? Because for me now, my biggest thing is I dream for others. And whatever I do for others. I want to do for others. And how do I not look selfish? And people think that I'm being selfish, I'm neglecting my kids, or I'm not doing what I'm doing outside I should be doing to my kids. The guilt, how do I deal with the guilt?
They say that where there's no vision, people perish, prof. So when you live in a country where there's no national vision, there's nowhere where we're going. As I said, leaders provide direction. This is where we're going. You can sense this. There was this big hope and expectation of freedom, and which has not been delivered. And then people have lost hope. And therefore, when you're despondent, you've got nothing to look forward to. And you try to find easy ways of survival, which is what young people are doing today. And we must be grateful for people like Prof who are creating platforms where people can dream again. Because we can't wait for politicians. Politicians never change the world anyway. The world is changed by human beings, by the people themselves. So we've got to provide those platforms of giving people an opportunity to dream again.
Yeah.
Right? Because we still do have a nation to build. And you can imagine if we have a whole generation that has done nothing with their lives, then the future is gone. Literally, the future is gone. And for that 45-year-old also, I would say that it's never too late to wake up. I've watched people going back to school at 30 and building great careers, for instance. So it's never too late to start pursuing your dream. And indeed, even the younger people must learn from our own mistakes so that they don't repeat them. If your father was absent when you have a child, don't repeat that. Make sure that you will be a present father to your own child, things like that. The last question was,
The guilt.
The guilt. Then it's this whole thing of this societal thing, because you know why I've called my podcast Unconditioned Mind? Is because this whole thing of gender inequality and racial inequality, there's a lot of conditioning. When you are conditioned to believe, I can't talk about single mothers because I was a single mother as well, and I just had to be selfish, and choose my own career. And I have no regrets for making that because I had no one to help me anyway. But for those which is why we need to deal with this whole issue of fatherlessness in our country and all of that. Because even if you're not married, you can still be a father to your child and so on. To say that women have been conditioned to believe that this is their responsibility, which is where the guilt is coming from. And in my own household, I've made sure that this whole issue of these defined roles of men and women don't apply in my own home. So my sons, they know that they can be as nurturing as any woman, they can cook as any woman, they can clean as any woman, and this is what they do. My son is the MD of wealth at Old Mission. Okay, he's divorced now. but shares the responsibility 50-50 with the ex-wife. 1 week, they are with my son. 1 week, they are with the ex-wife. Who's nurturing in that week? Who's making sure that their hair is done? It's 2 girls. Their hair is done. Who's making sure that they know how to cook? They cook together. They send me videos of the father and the daughters cooking together.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a myth, Mtanam, that it is our responsibility. Right? It is everybody's responsibility. My son-in-law, Mother's Day, or Sunday lunch or whatever, it's not. I've got 1 daughter and two sons. The other one is in Cape Town, the one in Joburg. It's not automatic that my daughter will cook. It can be my son-in-law cooking at my house.
Yeah.
At my house. At my house, because it's not automatic that my daughter must cook. It can be my son, it can be anybody. When I go to his house, I may find him cleaning, cooking. He takes care of the daughter's hair. Because he's like, hey, I'm not going to allow my daughter's hair to be destroyed like yours was destroyed. Found the salon himself. Takes the daughter there himself.
Wow.
Right? It's a lie, Mtana. It's a lie. This whole thing, that is our responsibility.
Mama, you spoke of vision. And as we close, can you take us through the vision you have for Awakened, this beautiful new chapter that you're in?
Yeah, you know, when you get to my age and you're just worried about your country, you're worried about your people, and you say to yourself, you've been complaining all your life, complaining about politicians, complaining about white people, complaining about this and that and that. At least, what can I contribute? Because I have this belief that whatever I've started, young people will complete it, right? I started a black firm. It's still going on today. Young people are completing that vision.
Yeah.
So we've got to take responsibility for our own transformation, and we've got to wake up and undo all the damage that was done, right? I asked myself, after over 60 years of freedom in Africa, why have we not been able to rebuild our countries? And we can be blaming leaders, you know, political leaders and things like that. I think that time is gone now. That time is gone. We, the people, must start the process. And each one of us has a responsibility to wake up and realize that I can be anything, I can do anything, and the past doesn't define me. So that is the whole driving force around this, to deal with gender inequality, to deal with racial inequality. Because I look at professionals who are not free in corporate, because you have to fit into this stereotype of black person or woman or whatever. And I say to myself, they choose self-abandonment. Because for your own safety, you have to fit in, you need this job, you know. And I say, if they bring half of themselves, how are we ever going to expand this cake? We're fighting over the small slice. We need to expand the cake. There are people outside who need us, who are inside, to expand the cake, right? And once we find our true selves, we're going to stop bringing half of ourselves to work. And as we do, we're going to remember, if feminine energy and African energy is not allowed in corporate, we're losing a whole creativity by not allowing it, right? Because if you expect me to be a white person, can I be the best? I can't be the best,
Not at all.
right? So when I find my own self, then I can bring my own self and bring my own creativity and do things differently.
Yeah.
We don't know when we allow black people to be themselves in corporate, what will happen? I say, guys, believe you me, I started this thing and I looked at the social, as we close, let's close now, we're late. When I looked at the social change of the 17th, 18th century that ended up with the Industrial Revolution, when black people and women wake up and find who they truly are, well, there's a new world that is waiting for us that we've never seen. The Industrial Revolution will look like a picnic, I promise you. Thank you.
Mama, you've awakened us this evening. And through your book, I believe many, many more people will be awakened. Can we just rise and honor her?